you are a B2B service-based business owner and you are looking to gain more clients, create more impact and more revenue in your business, tune in to Amplify Your Marketing Message with Christine Campbell Rapin. Every week, we're going to take you through how to build an audience of buyers, mastering your marketing message, and making offers. Welcome back, everybody. I know that so many people around the world want to write a book. It's one of the biggest aspirations many people hold, and yet only 2% of people actually do write the book. And when it comes to the world of business, even fewer monetize and make commercial success attracting clients with the book as an asset. And I want you to be the exception to the rule. I want you to be an outlier and an exceptional example who wins clients predictably. And that's why I have invited our next guest into today's show to help you amplify your marketing, but to use the book as a platform to find high-paying clients. So please give a very warm welcome. We have Shauan VanderHoek with us today. Welcome to our show. Excited to have you here.
Thank you, Christine. It's a pleasure.
I want to start with this whole idea because so many people get this idea of like launch the book, but I see a massive issue when it comes to crickets with a thought process that goes, what happens next? So how do you see books, and how do you see books particularly as it relates to the business world and what it can do to monetize your message and the work you do?
You know what, you just said about 5 things I want to respond to in that little nutshell. Yeah, so the actual question, let me do that one first, and then I'll expand on some of the things you said on the way.
Mm-hmm. So the question is, why do so many people launch a book but not see this as a commercial component, and they just hope it's going to work?
Yeah,
Very few see the success.
When people don't see it as a viable product that they have for their business as a way to attract clients, they don't do the marketing up front that's really required. Mm-hmm. Most people, in fact, that's one reason I got into book project management, was to actually get people to see that there's a whole wide world of things that need to happen. I actually kind of teased when I first started realizing for myself, when I did my first couple of books, it's like all it's entailed. And I thought maybe I just put out a book called the 697 ways to, steps to finish your book, because there's so many details. I'm a detail person. Yeah. And so the one thing I think most people miss out on is just making sure they're getting the word out all the way through. Mm. But for it to be an asset, people have to know about it. Now, one way is to actually take it, carry your book with you, of course, everywhere you go. And in fact, multiple copies is even better, especially if you're going to a network event or anything of that nature where there's going to be multiple people you're talking to. Mm-hmm. But just even if you're going by yourself out for lunch, take your book and just set it there. So
I think this is such low-hanging fruit, and it's true. A book is a product. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, just like your course, your program, or whatever it is that you are selling as the vehicle to a result that somebody would pay for. And so you do have to think about the marketing. And I love that you talk about it's before, it's building the audience, it's after. And I know for sure one of the most common pieces of advice we were given in more advanced communities, not necessarily in the right when we first started, was, why do you not always carry 2 things? Your book and a introduction if you want to be a speaker, because if you're invited, you should be talking about your book and talking about what you do, and you should always take the moment. So I love that you think simple, because simple is so effective.
Yeah, and it is. It's simply just following the steps. And it's, like I said, there's a lot of steps, which is what I help people with, but to get each piece. And you also mentioned something earlier when you were asking the question, mm-hmm. About the whole thought process. And one of the things that I am finally admitting to the world is that I'm very intuitive. And I have kind of worked a little bit with friends and family and, just asking some insightful questions. But so many people start a book and they never get it finished, mm-hmm. because they run into blocks. And it's usually something that is like, if they can even see what the block is, that sometimes just dissipates it. They can actually move forward. So that's one of the exciting new things that I'm rebranding and just getting my new website up to announce that to the world.
Correction. You have announced it. You've announced it right here, and I celebrate you doing that. It's already in motion. Yes, already in motion. You're welcome. And this is an interesting thing because when you decide to be breaking ground, so I'm going to take an idea, I'm going to bring it to market. How do you use this effectively? Because you're somebody who really helps people work through the process, not just to do the tick the box, but to be effective. And I think effectiveness is the key thing. How do you think effectiveness is built?
One step at a time. I'm
so glad you answered that.
my
People is not complicated.
But yeah, it's part of it's confidence, and part of it is just knowing what needs to be done. I think that's it in a nutshell.
And when you don't know what needs to be done, people, audience, listeners, business owners, peers, you hire it. You hire somebody who's actually walked this. And Shauna is someone who we believe is somebody you should work with, which is why we brought her onto this platform. But you've launched it, and now how do you use it to attract? Tell us how you really think we can win with a book commercially.
Well, one thing, it gives you a whole lot more respectability, authority. People, have a different impression of someone who's written a book than just someone who's just I'm just doing my thing. And so having your book, being an author, that's one level of the respectability. And it's something where if you're talking to someone, there might be a point in your book where it would help them. If you're a health practitioner, there might be a tidbit in there, and it's like, oh, read this chapter because it might really make a difference for you in dealing with your health. Or if it's a lawn mowing service, landscaping, it's like, oh yeah, here's some ideas for your home. So it's like, it's a way to say, I know what I'm talking about because it's in print.
It's so important, and you're right. And it's because it's a rare group that actually launches a book. And what I love about people who have the courageous act to not just start it, but complete it, launch it, and market it, is it's usually one of many. And you can talk about your book in almost every place. And that's a bit unique because when you're invited into media circles, whether that's print media, digital media, events, things like that, a lot of people have rules and control over what you can share. But a book is universally accepted because of the authority factor it brings. And so when you're working with your clients, how do you first start them?
We start with finding out, why do you want to write a book? Now, for everyone, it can be a little bit different. So for some people, it could be, I've always wanted to write a book, but they really don't have anything else going on. So we dive deeper. For some people, they go, well, I want to promote my business. And we go into, okay, why is it that you want to do that? What do you expect to get out of the book? What do you want your audience to get out of the book? So we go into a large number of questions. In fact, I'm actually doing a writer's journal right now, and I expect to have that out probably in April. But it will have a lot of these questions queued up. So, if you're not ready to hire me, you can always go just get the journal and start answering the questions.
It's important that you do start at the beginning. And what the beginning actually is, everybody, is the results you want. We always say start with the end in mind. That is actually the beginning. And it is a journey. Once you start something, I always believe in the compound effect. One conversation, one domino, one question leads to one insight. It just keeps a snowball effect. You've positioned yourself as an expert when you become an author. And we always joke, you need to sell one book to be a published author that has sales. You might not be yet the New York Best Times seller. That might not be your end goal to start with. But how do you actually use this to attract a paying client? So we've got exposure. How do we transition interest into clients?
Now that's the sales question of the year, right?
For many.
We've talked about the first step is just getting them acquainted with the fact that you are an authority. You have the information that is going to help them with whatever their need is. So that's step one. And I honestly think your question belongs to a salesperson.
I can help with that, guys.
Talk to Christine.
Where do you lead them to next? So if it's not directly into the sales, what kind of take us on the journey?
Well, it's actually, the journey is from the start, starting with why you want the book. But then the next step is to actually, okay, what do you want to put in the book to get the result you want? So we do a very deep client research. It's a software that I use that digs in. You identify a few books that would be competing with you, if you will, or that are on a like topic. And we do a deep dive. It's usually a 10 to 15 page report that we end up giving you. And it tells you what your readers are looking for in a book. It tells you what they hated about the other books. It tells you what they loved about the other books. It's got all their reactions, and it helps you when you see how they've responded to other books. It helps you kind of frame up, well, I need to give them more information on this because they felt that was always lacking. So it's a way to make sure you are putting into your book what needs to be in your book. And then we go into a very deep blueprint, so an outline, if you will, that tells you piece by piece. So, when you're writing, sometimes you're inspired to write something that's not necessarily chronological in your book, but you know that you plug that spot and you can get on with writing the other spots.
I think this is brilliant for a couple of reasons. The first thing is research of existing books shows you that there's a demand and an interest as long as you see that there has been a sale. So if you've seen a public review, there's good indication somebody read the book to give the review. And I always say, don't be frightened by competitor activity. It shows you there's demand in the marketplace and appetite to learn, to grow, to create that result which somebody sought to serve in the book they published. And I love that you also suggest find the gap, because it's how you can be distinct, it's how you can be bringing a unique opinion, and how your people will be served. And that's how you win and build momentum to tell me more beyond the book. How do you actually support me? And I love that you provide such a comprehensive report. This is really gold before you set off on the journey to launch a book. So congratulations, I think that's brilliant.
Thank you.
What do you do after you have all the research? What's the big win comes next?
Once you've done that research, you might be doing other research as you're fleshing out parts of your chapter, like to find other stories that, beyond what you've experienced in your own business. You can say, people that have done this get this result. And so there's more research to be done after that. But that's what the launch is, the starting of your book, the birth. And then there's that 9 months.
Like everything has a gestation.
Yeah,
I never forget that, guys. It doesn't go instantaneous.
The period where writing the draft. Now, this is something that it's so hard for people to do, is just dump out everything, dump out your thoughts, write the first draft, because we want to make it right the first time. It's like, oh, let me correct that spelling. Oh, I could word that differently. Just get it out there. Just get it onto paper, or, or what do you call it? The virtual paper. Get it on paper.
Some kind, or dictated if it's easier.
Yeah. And it's once you get it all out there, then you come back, because I know I was working on a book once, and I got to a point where I couldn't even see it. It's like, it just felt messy. I knew everything was there, but it just felt messy. And I think one of the most valuable resources is a developmental editor. Mm-hmm. And I hired a developmental editor, and she said, oh yeah, just move this section here and do this and tweak this, and you need more information here, and you're going on too long over there. And it helped so much. It was like, just, everything just tumbled into place.
This is key. You cannot see the forest for your own tree. And I love the advice you're giving, having been a best-selling author myself and 2 book projects on the horizon. It is about schedule the time, simply write, simply show up, simply think about the elements when the brain fires, and that's an intuitive piece that you say you lean into. You say, I'm going to fire on that idea today, and then have somebody who's at 50,000 feet find the pattern, because you always have a pattern and you cannot always see it, but it does really help people connect the dots. And in the same way that this developmental book editor brought that clarity to you, that's why you bring in a project manager who knows the dots, or you bring in a strategist like myself who said, I understand how we connect this to create commercial success, the marketing, the sales, and the systems, but you cannot see it for yourself. So do not start, because you cannot yet see what you don't know. And so I think this is a really great recommendation, because it'll wow you when you see somebody come back and say, here's how it actually all comes together. And you're like, yes. That's awesome. Like, I'm awesome. This is going to be fun. I can't wait to share the world my book as it gets towards the marketplace. I want to also ask you, as we lead into a question around, how do you find clients? Because we're talking about books to find clients, and you use a whole book strategy to support your business. When you look at your successful clients and those that have launched and created the momentum they sought, for you, what pattern did you see?
Well, I think this is one of the reasons I'm bringing out my intuitive side, because I was really holding back on that before, and now I'm willing to share it. But one of the struggles I saw with my clients is they would go chasing rabbits, is what I call it, and so getting them back on track without bringing in this intuitive part and asking them those insightful questions. I was trying to not get too personal, and I'm getting personal now.
Good. I celebrate this, because your book is a very personal representation, and you will be hired and read for your opinion.
Yeah. So I'm working with them more in that capacity now, and I'm starting to see shifts. They're more lining up to actually finish the book and get it out there. One gal actually took an excerpt from her book, and that's a nice thing with books. You can repurpose them in so many ways, but she took just an excerpt and created a little, she did it actually for one of her clients who really needed the information. So she just pulled it out. She published it as a little mini book pamphlet, not even a mini book, real small thing. But she went ahead and did that. And the person realized, you really know what you're doing here. And just from that, she started working with her.
That's right. You create the first win. And we often underestimate that it has to be War and Peace in 12 billion chapters. Sometimes what you need is that golden nugget. And I love that you say you can repurpose this in a lot of ways, because that is actually how you do create multiple different ways to create revenue with your book. And there is strategy around this. So let me ask you, how do you right now amplify your business? How do you find clients most effectively? What's working for you right now in the current economy?
Since I'm not really a social media person, I'm working on that. I'm going to be getting.
You don't have to be. You can be visible, but you don't have to love social. Let's be clear.
Yeah, I'm just going to do LinkedIn. I'm not going to try the other ones, and maybe some YouTube. But how I do it right now is personal references, and I do get people referred to me, and I also let it be known when I go to different networking events. There's a few great ones here, and then there's the virtual networking events, which I'm finding to be, I'm meeting some amazing people and getting awesome responses. So in fact, I'll even give them a shout out, the eWomen Network.
Yes, I've spoken at eWomen several times. I've got several friends that run chapters. It's a great community for female entrepreneurs. It's a real mix of help, support, tools, and camaraderie, which we all need.
And it's actually, I just started a month ago, and already I'm seeing results.
Love it. I love it. Congratulations. So how do people find you, learn about your services, and connect to you?
Okay, AskShauna.com. It's Shauna's SHAUNA, as you can see on the screen. So it's askshawna.com. And if you do /gift, I'm going to have an excerpt of my journal for you.
Guys, you want to go do this because it's okay not to know what questions you don't yet know to ask. She's offering to guide you to get you started. And once you start, I highly encourage you to follow your intuition and go connect in a bigger way. Shauana, thank you for being our guest today. Books can be an incredible tool. Don't let them sit on the shelf. Build a strategy, manage it, project for end to end, and connect the dots. That's how you'll create big momentum. Thank you for being our guest today, guys. We will see you all on our next episode. We'll be connecting with you soon.
Thank you.
That's a wrap on another amazing episode of Amplify Your Marketing Message with me, your host, Christine Campbell Rapin. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss another great episode. And be sure to visit christinecampbellrapin.com/podcast to get a free resource on how to master your marketing message. We'll see you all